Quanda, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I am married with three children. I'm currently pursuing a PhD. I'm an entrepreneur, an accountant, a data scientist, community organizer, youth advocate, which suggests I know a lot about time management. And I'm just, incredibly thankful for this opportunity. Because I feel like right now I am giving a voice to a lot of New Yorkers that are unheard. I had a youth forum yesterday, and I sort of talked about the fact that a lot of our, youth are foreigners in their own city. They are, traveling within a 3 or 4 mile radius. And I think about that in terms of my childhood. And now I look and I say, wow, like how can our students, sort of contribute to a city that they don't know? How can they contribute if they're not being heard, if they're being disregarded? So a lot of my platform is sort of, looking towards our future, ensuring that we educate our students to their fullest potential.
And tell me a little bit about your background too. You are a Brooklynite, right?
Yes. Yeah. So as I said, I was born and raised in Brooklyn. Uh, I've overcome tremendous adversity. I was, pregnant at 17, dropped out of high school. And, for me, what's the devastating point of that, about that, the most devastating part of that is that I was a brilliant student. I performed really well. And then it was this sort of moment where we had high stakes testing and I didn't perform well, and it changed the trajectory of my life. And although, I tested out of high school in the 10th grade, there was nothing at 17 for me to do. There was no outlet, there was no opportunities. So, I was too young to even go into college without the help of my parents. So I just look at all of these, uh, opportunities that weren't afforded to me. And now I'm running for mayor because I see those cracks, right? I hear a lot of the candidates talk about, they know what the problems are. Okay, well, where are your solutions? I'm saying if I'm elected, there will be less people that are living in that are living in poverty. I'm saying that if I am elected, there will be less, I will reduce the homeless population. I'm saying that I will reduce crime if I'm elected. I'm saying that all of my policies will lead to a New York City that works for everyone.
Yeah, it sounds like those are a lot of your big issues, especially, making sure we get to the youth, because they are our future. What are some other big issues that you're running on?
So, economic equality. Right now we have a situation where again, New York City is not working for everyone. We've had felon schools in the same neighborhoods for, you know, practically over 100 years. If you hear some of the things that some of the candidates are talking about now, we had mayors that were talking about the same issues in terms of education 100 years ago. That's unacceptable, and which leads us to this moment, right? We need candidates of the future. Our infrastructure is falling apart. We have certain communities that have food deserts, recreational deserts. There are no outlets, and the lack of investment is causing what we see as sort of these systemic problems in terms of like the increases in crime due to lack of opportunities. And we are failing, our children here, which are our most valuable resources, because you and I are going to grow old. So we want to ensure that we leave that we sort of raise a generation that's able to take care of us. And right now, I look at, the number of senior citizens that died as a result of just being exposed to, the COVID-19 pandemic. And you look at the policies that were associated with that, it's like they're haphazard. We have enough data. We should have elected officials that are capable and competent to utilize data in a way that produces, you know, uh, public policies that ensure that New Yorkers are not just safe from harm, but they also have opportunities.
You mentioned COVID-19, and that is something, really big. This race, this mayoral race that we're looking at, in terms of how is the next mayor going to help, continue, any vaccination efforts, and then also, have the city come out of the impacts that COVID has had on us. What are your plans for that?
So one very well, my plans for that as a data scientist and and an accountant is to basically look at the data. You know, I know this population in New York City. So, in utilizing the data to sort of like understand the information seeking channels of our most marginalized communities, to utilize the data to ensure that, our small businesses are able to recover, like they need a bailout. I hear a lot of, again, we need to support our businesses, support our businesses. We bail out corporations. We're building prisons that are 8 point, that are going to cost the city $8 billion, but we haven't set up this sort of fund and track the number of businesses that are either in danger of either closing or have closed their doors permanently, and offered solutions for them to sort of have them re-enter our economy and contribute. And then again, we have a human resources problem, right? Because we are not training our students for a 21st century career. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to disrupt every industry. That includes the accounting and every industry. So if we don't make sure that our students are exposed, and in terms of COVID-19, everything that's been going on before the pandemic has been there. And the COVID-19 pandemic has kind of like just showed us what happens when you have a leadership deficit, right? In times of crisis, that's when leadership is tested, right? Adversity tests character. And this is what we've seen. We've seen a government that just did not have a good grasp of understanding the population that it serves, the constituents that it serves, not just the ones that vote, right? Because another part of my platform is to get 850,000 new voters to the polls, right? They have to understand, and that's one thing that my candidacy is it's become so vocal and visible, because people are like, "What? Wow, she's running for mayor," right? So it's one thing to say I have never voted in my entire life, but it's another thing to see someone from your neighborhood or someone with your background that says, "Hey, I've been homeless. I've been a victim of domestic violence." I mean, for everything that I've talked about that I've overcome, there are 10 to 20 things that I haven't even mentioned. So, but the people that understand it and know my plight, it is very, very inspirational to them. And I cannot tell you, I have 18-year-olds that are working on my campaign. I have law students that are working on my campaign. Like, they are fired up. I have students from the University of Michigan, right, Ann Arbor, that are like fired up and working on this campaign because they believe in this vision.
I want to talk about more, big topics, because there's a lot, with such a big city like New York City. Let's talk about police community relationships. How will you help that?
Well, you know, we need to first ensure that we have a very diverse police department, and I'm talking about the top brass. The deputy commissioners, the three-star chiefs, the commissioner of the department. The goals of public safety need to be aligned with a vision that ensures that we have a New York City that works for everyone. And right now, that's just not happening. As someone that has worked for the police department and sort of, kind of studied the way they produce their data, just who gets promoted, who does it, it creates a situation of competing priorities, right? Is your priority, and what's the priority in one group of in one part of the city opposed to another? What you will see if you look at the crime data is that it looks like there's competing priorities in the Upper East Side versus a community in Brownsville. You have one precinct that is focused on crime and arrest, and you have another precinct that is, really focused on, reporting less crimes than they did the year before, which is, a term called winning the year. So it's like, what are the priorities? And it appears that, if you have a mayor that's going to appoint a commissioner that doesn't understand the importance of accountability, that doesn't understand the importance of putting people in in leadership positions that are going to build the community and not sort of continue systemic practices, we're going to always have these sort of issues where there's just mistrust, right? Detectives cannot be allowed to lie to individuals. They need to be open and transparent about that. And, and it just needs to be a situation where professionalism is the starting point, regardless of if you are a police officer in in Brownsville or again the Upper East Side. You start with professionalism. You start with respecting the community that you're working in, and that sort of reciprocity will benefit both parties.
And you worked with the NYPD, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
what did you do there?
The crime analysts, researchers sort of put together the crime data and sort of advised the commanding officer for a command that was in the UN. And, a lot of sort of financial crimes. I looked into that. And that's another reason why I'm so passionate about ensuring that, students are educated to their fullest potential. We have students that are in certain portions of the city that can recode credit cards, but they've dropped out of school. That's a very sophisticated, capability. And the question becomes, are we utilizing them? Are we educating them in the way that is best suited for them? That's one of the reasons why I've talked about introducing artificial intelligence and machine learning into the curriculum. And so again, a lot of, I was responsible for a lot of the data that the commissioner used and the commanding officers use. So I understand how crimes are upgraded and downgraded in order to, let's say, win the year. And there are a lot of amazing individuals that are members of the service. There are a lot of amazing police officers. There are a lot of amazing, just a lot of amazing people that work for the department. And then you have sort of the systemic practices that go on that, that will allow someone like me with 3 degrees and, working on a PhD to be denied, a promotion because of my race and my gender. And considering everything that I've overcome and the fact that, I've just, presented everything that I possibly could, because I bought into the fact that, you work hard and you're rewarded for that. So to know that I went into a department with the mindset that I'm going to, I'm going to help them improve community relations. If I see pattern recognition software as a data scientist that may be biased, I'm going to be that person that speaks up. You can't change a system from the outside. Sometimes you have to go in and sort of look at how they're putting these cases together. That's why the Manhattan DA's office, that race is so incredibly important. So when we talk about policing, a lot of that is sort of left out in terms of the DAs, in terms of, what evidence are they being presented with, and that's the starting point for that. So
Yeah, and it's so interesting your background too. With, I mean, you see everything from a data, point, and reading all of the, like, let's look at the stats and then see, that's an interesting take. Yeah, what do you think sets you apart from the other candidates?
I think my background, my life experiences, the fact that I understand the importance of hiring the best people, my approach to everything, and good old fashioned leadership, right? Again, the fact that, I'm a data scientist, an accountant, an MBA. I have all of these sort of unique perspectives of looking at things. And, I'll look at some of the other candidates that are like, have a bachelor's degree and they've been able to have these incredible careers. And as I said, I've worked hard, and I'm able to contribute so much more in terms of the lens in which I see things based on my background, and not just from a this is what I see, but from a solutions oriented aspect, because I'm able to not just look at the data points, but I'm immediately able to sort of look at the budget and say, okay, well, how does this work for us? I can look at a budget and say, what's wasteful spending? These are all sort of, and this is not something that I have to speak to someone else about. This is in my background. So I will know if someone is giving me inaccurate information, right? I'm in a position to look at the, just New York City, our ecosystem, the interconnectedness of our economy. When our economy stopped, the world noticed. It was not just New York City, right? It was not, it was the Midwest. It was travel. You look at how our tourism industry is set up. Even our nightlife promoters. It's like, when we had a situation where we needed to get information to communities of color about the COVID-19 pandemic, I got to work because I knew communities I knew that individuals in the communities that I grew up in lived in multi-generational household. So I immediately knew what information seeking channels to sort of utilize. I knew that there was an issue with, not having, hand sanitizer, personal PPE equipment. Like, I knew all of this because I understand the unique dynamics of New York City as a whole, and then understanding the city in terms of where resources needed to be targeted. Like, as a data scientist, as an MBA, as an accountant, and then as someone that studies information, right, and understands what an information barrier can do in terms of decision making, my execution would just be very, very different from any other candidate because of my background, my expertise, and my lived experiences.
When voters head to the polls on election day, and what do you want them to know about you?
I want them to know that I am the best candidate. I want them to know that this accountant, this MBA, this this PhD candidate, this mother of three, has overcome just about every sort of thing that is standing in the way of a New York City that works for everyone. I want them to know I will reduce the homeless population. I will reduce the number of New Yorkers living in poverty. I will improve educational outcomes for all New York City students. I will reduce the crime in this city. And I will lastly balance our budget, and not on the backs of our most vulnerable, and also not at the expense of our business community, which is so vital to our business ecosystem. Students with disabilities, I have an 8-year-old son. He's incredible. And I need to ensure that students with disabilities get the resources that they need. Every parent with the student with the disability will have a friend in City Hall.
What is your favorite New York City restaurant? Or can you even name one?
Oh my God. My favorite New York. I would say the Lantern, the Thai restaurant. Yeah. It used to be Bangkok House, but it's closed. So
And what do you get usually?
ah, uh, Thai fried rice with chicken and coconut soup with mushrooms and chicken. Like,
You're making me hungry.
and I get the same thing over and over. That's I have each restaurant. I have a favorite dish. So let's, yeah. So
Mhm. Yeah. My second question for you is, what's something about yourself that people might not know?
I can sing. Yes, I enjoyed imitating James Brown when I was younger. I would, yes.